I have actually sourced questions from members of the Create community. And these questions I'm going to kind of rapid fire go through. I haven't pre-scripted. I haven't answered them before. I just selected questions and I'm going to answer them live here in this musing.
This is the Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
What's up, Deep Divers? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Deep Dive podcast. My name is Adam Roa, and today is a Deep Dive musing. It is just me and you today. Yeah, we're going to go into my mind, and my mind's a little crazy today because I'm out in Joshua Tree in solitude, just me and my dog, and I've been doing a water fast followed by a juice cleanse. So I'm at about 72 hours and I've had about 250 calories in the form of green juice in the last 72 hours. So I'm a little delirious. However, this is going to make for an interesting podcast because we have a different format today, which is that I have actually sourced questions from members of the Create community. And these questions I'm going to kind of rapid fire go through. I haven't pre-scripted. I haven't answered them before. I just selected questions and I'm going to answer them live here in this musing. This is actually kind of a test too, because I am thinking that I want to do this with medicines, plant medicines involved. So imagine me answering these questions using plant medicines at the time. That is not the case now, but why it's a test is because I'm fasting and I'm cleansing. And so in many ways, if you've ever done a fast or a cleanse, you know that your way of thinking shifts. It definitely shifts. And so I'm excited to give this a shot. Thank you to all you Create community members who posted your questions. I'm sorry if your question was not one of the one that's selected, but next time we'll do this again. So if you're not familiar with what the Create community is, by the way, the Create community is the online personal development membership community that I started at the beginning of COVID. And for a year and a half now, we have been up-leveling people in their relationships, business, and creativity to really help people understand how to actualize the visions that they have for their life and step into their conscious leadership, because the world needs people who are following their dreams, who believe that they can do anything and manifest the life that they desire. And this is the community where I bring in some of the world's top experts in these fields, and we have a class every single week. So if you're interested in that, check the show notes, thecreatecommunity.com. I'd love to have you in there. And once again, thank you to all of you deep divers for being a part of this, and to all of you Create community members who have submitted these questions. So let's dive in and see where this takes us, huh? First question, Marta Rexic. I hope I'm saying that right. Marta Rexic. What does spirituality mean to you? How do you define it? Spirituality to me is my relationship to the force, the energy that connects all things. You can call that God, you can call it spirit, you can call it source, you can call it Allah, you can call it whatever you want. But I believe that we are operating in a fabric of reality. There's like a space-time quilt that is laid out, and we are all woven into that. What you think of as air around you right now, many people would refer to that as empty space, but it's not actually empty space. That space is full. That space is full of so many molecules and atoms and quarks and all of the things. And if you really broke down all the empty space, you would see that it's not empty at all. And so that means that this space around me right now and around you right now, it's more like moving through water. You don't feel the resistance the way you would with water, because the molecules aren't as dense. I think that's correct, but you're still moving through forces. You're moving through gravity. You're moving through these of the air molecules and the oxygen and hydrogen and all of the things. So I think this is really important, because what comprises that? What connects all of this, right? If there's oxygen molecules outside of me that I'm moving through and inside of me, what's the actual place that they begin and I end, or I end and they begin? Where is that? And so I feel like if you saw this giant pool of molecules, and if you could see it on a just quantum level, all you would see is like particles, like the Matrix kind of. And I believe at that level, the thread that connects everything is love. Love is the expansive force. And this is where it gets tricky, because now I sound like a hippie, right? Because I said, this is all, it's love that is God and things. Well, bear with me here, okay? I believe that love is the expansive force of the universe, and love is just our word for it. And our word, even the word love, is not really equipped to truly encapsulate the enormity of it. Just like the word God is not equipped to encapsulate the enormity of it. However, using that word love, the reason why I believe that is because love is so expansive. When we feel loved, we expand. When we feel love for things, we expand. Every time that you expand, it's not you expanding, it's love coming into that space and expanding you, right? When you didn't think you were worthy, all of a sudden now you step into more love for yourself, and your worthiness increases and you expand. That process of allowing love in, to me, is the same process as allowing God in. It's the same thing, that force of expansion, because the universe, creation, is always expanding. It is expanding. It is moving. It is shifting. It is changing. And I believe that force that we can call love, we can call it God, whatever, that force that helps us expand and exist, that, to me, my relationship with that is my spirituality. And I think that spirituality gets all jacked up when it needs to be quantified, when people try and put a label on it, when they try and put religion around it, when they try and say, oh, I'm a atheist, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Christian, I'm a channel for the Pleiades, I am what, like, all of those things are limitations because the words themselves try and put us into a box. And so for me, spirituality is my relationship to that expansive force of the universe, which you can call God. I think love is a great word for it, and based off our understanding. And my relationship to that is my own. And it's always shifting, it's always changing. And the more that I continue to focus on it, the more depth I have to my own spiritual practices and my own spirituality. So thank you for the question, Marta. Let's go into this next one. Jackie O'Brien. Jackie says, how do you prioritize your creativity without it impacting your productivity? This is a great question. And I'm actually going to flip it, because I see my productivity as being a byproduct of my creativity. So, meaning that, like, the Create community, right? I run the Create community. I'm the founder, CEO, president, whatever you want to say. A lot of my, of what goes into the business of the Create community behind the scenes is execution. right? The actual, hey, we get to make a website. Hey, we get to set up a payment system so we can take payments. Hey, we get to, create a calendar of events and et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of execution. And the thing that we're executing on are the ideas and visions, which require creativity. Unless you are actually just doing a paint by numbers, if you're just basically saying, hey, I'm going to take this model that's being handed to me and just do exactly as I'm told, A, B, C, D, E, in which case now you're just entirely in execution. The actual visioning and the process itself is one of creativity. And I think that is the most important part if you want to be expanding both yourself, but also the collective, because to be utilizing your creativity, and I've done a podcast on this, what is creativity, right? And in that previous podcast, you can go back and listen to it. I speak to how creativity is just your brain putting together patterns that it's never put together before, which means you're playing at the edge of your consciousness. And so where we're at right now on the planet collectively is we have used our collective consciousness to get us to a certain state where it's no longer sustainable. We are seeing us just destroying this planet in terms of natural resources. We are seeing the climate problems. We are seeing a number of issues. I mean, we're in the midst of a global pandemic and arguing over, what to do about it. And so because it's gotten us here, I don't have this view that it's ever been wrong or bad. I'm really grateful because we've created at the edge of our consciousness up until now. And like Einstein famously said, we can't solve the problem with the same level of thinking, the same level of consciousness that created it. So we will have to create from a higher level of consciousness if we are going to design systems that solve our current issues. And so I don't have personally any interest in creating something from the same level of consciousness that has already been here and has been around. I have a personal interest in being a part of creating things that are at my leading edge of consciousness, which means that I'm expanding through the process of creating it. And as a result, I'm also creating at the leading edge of collective consciousness, assuming that I am constantly learning and growing and doing my absolute best. So when I view it from that perspective, creativity is my starting place, and I build my productivity around that and the execution pieces for myself. If I ever find myself doing things that feel like they're sucking my creativity, they're draining my energy, I find a way to offload them. I hire out, or I alter what it is, or I remove it altogether. So hope that's helpful, Jackie. Next question from Anna Novo. Anna asks, how to conquer loneliness? Loneliness. Loneliness is... To me, there's a difference between being lonely and being alone. There's like a big difference. Similarly, I think I've said this as there's a difference between being lonely and being by yourself. And I feel like loneliness stems from when someone is not actually comfortable being by themselves, being alone. And I know this from my own journey. As someone who was in relationship for as long as I really was never alone. From 23 to 33, I was like never alone. And so even after that, I went on the road making my YouTube show, The Art of Choosing Love. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's on YouTube, it's free, and it's a reality show I made after that breakup. So check it out. And after that, I was traveling with my friend Angus, and we were producing music and making music. So there's just so much. The last 12, 13 years, I wasn't really alone. And so this year, 2021, when I really have spent the entire year being single and being more or less on my own, even right now, I'm by myself here, I discovered how much of me had struggled when I'm by myself, has felt bored, has felt unproductive, that has felt lonely, that has felt like I'm not living my purpose, et cetera, et cetera. And so the work to conquer, in your question, to conquer loneliness, is the work of figuring out how to be comfortable by yourself. Because when you can get to that place, you're now no longer actually going to be afraid of being by yourself. And so your interactions with other people, being around groups, being in relationship, they all become a bonus. They don't become an escape. And so that process of learning to be okay on your own is a process of several pieces. I think that for me, it's involved accessing my own ability to sit in silence and stillness and be comfortable with that. And that looks like working on a lot of the fears and doubts and insecurities, because those are the things that rise up. Often we stay busy or we stay surrounded by people because we don't want to face the things that come up for us when we're by ourselves. And so that's a big piece. And I think another big piece is finding purpose so that when you have time by yourself, it doesn't feel wasted. It doesn't feel like all you're going to do is sit around and watch Netflix. But instead, you see it as an opportunity to use that time to move in the direction of your purpose, why you're here. And those are just some of the things that I've found have been very, very helpful to conquer loneliness. Great question. Christina De Silva asks, what is your shadow self? My shadow self is, what is my shadow self? So there's a couple ways I could answer that. I feel the first way is saying, what's my deepest shadow? I feel that my deepest shadow is thinking that there's something wrong with me, that I'm a bad person, that inherently there is a problem or something that's off or broken inside of me that I can't see or understand, and that sabotages relationships, that can't be happy, that, say whatever you want to add there. That's been my greatest kind of karmic shadow. And so I would say that. And then what is my shadow self? Or it says, what is your shadow self? The shadow self to me is all of it's the partner that I have to show me where I can let more love in. Meaning, if my shadow self shows up in a moment and I'm in a argument with someone, and I leave that argument and I go into my shadow self of thinking I'm a bad person, there's something wrong with me, and I go there. There's the opportunity there to say, wow, I can love myself more here. I don't need to judge myself here. I don't have to beat myself up for owning my truth, et cetera, et cetera. When my shadow self shows up in deep sadness, despite the fact that everything seems on the surface like it's going really, really well, and I just have one of those days, and I just go into the spiral and start thinking to myself, I'm going to be dealing with this for the rest of my life. I'm going to fall back into depression, whatever that might be. My shadow self is now showing me where I have an opportunity to even strengthen my knowing that the emotion will pass, strengthen my resolve to lean into my self-love practices and not just, curl up on the floor and give up. my shadow self shows me where there's an opportunity for growth and to pour more love in. And as I pour more love in, my shadow self actually shrinks because it becomes more nuanced. And I feel like I exist less in that shadow self than in the self that has shined a light of awareness on the shadow and therefore illuminated it in a beautiful way. So I hope that answers your question, Christina. And then last question here, it's actually two people who had questions that were very similar. Yusuf Farawi asks, how much personal responsibility should we take on for the collective good? And Tanya Luce asks, how do you see us working together in the future? Us, the people. And I feel like they're similar question here, and good ones in this global climate. First of all, how do I see us working together in the future? I'll say this. If we are unable to prioritize the good of the collective over our own, it's not our own good, because you want to put your oxygen mask on first, but once your primal safety, food, shelter needs are taken care of, that next step, we'll call that the abundance step. If we are unable to prioritize the safety needs of the collective over our abundance desires, I think we're in for a disaster. And so prioritizing how we work together, to me, really it's about prioritizing getting everyone to a state where their safety needs feel met. Because this is also important in the sense that if your nervous system is in fight or flight and freaking out, your brain and neurochemistry and neurobiology, it just works in a way where you're not able to process information in the same way. And it makes it very difficult for you to change beliefs. It makes you very difficult for you to rewrite your stories. It makes it very difficult for you to be open-minded when you're in that fight or flight. And most people on the planet right now are in a state of fight or flight to some degree. Everyone seems to be having these nervous system issues. Mental health issues are on the rise. People's physical safety, people's emotional well-being, all of it has taken a huge hit during this time. And I think that if we are going to come together and really build a future that we want to see, then we get to help create a world in which the nervous systems of people are relaxed enough so that they can be open-minded to new ideas and shift their beliefs around it. And to Yusuf's point, how much personal responsibility do we need to take in this process? I think that we should be taking 100% personal responsibility for our role in it. Everyone's role is different, so personal responsibility will not look the same, meaning everyone's role, I think, is taking care of their own nervous systems. I believe that everyone's role is taking care of their own physical health. I believe everyone's role is, expanding their community and their well-being. Your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being is your responsibility. And by understanding that and taking that on, you will naturally start taking actions that will support you in calming your nervous system and bringing your vibe, your overall vibration and frequency higher. And when you do that, the way in which you think will shift. The thoughts that you have and the emotions that you feel will shift. And therefore the actions that you take will shift. And your now personal responsibility for your own physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being will overflow into how you show up in the collective. And if you're in a state where you feel good physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually, the actions that you take will want to support others in getting to that place too. I truly believe that. I believe that human beings are predisposed to want to support other human beings. We're tribal creatures, and the survival of our species is dependent on us having community and tribe. And so that would indicate that it's not in our best interest on a very biological survival standpoint to go out and do things that hurt other people. Instead, it's in our best interest to actually go out and support other people. However, when we find ourselves in states of stress and finding ourselves depleted of serotonin, what ends up happening is we now go into survival mode and we start looking at how can I basically alleviate my pain? How can I take care of myself? And we can make choices that are not supportive of collective good. And so that is where your personal responsibility is paramount. Are you doing things to take care of your physical body? Are you eating well? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking enough water? I'm literally doing a water fast followed by a juice cleanse. I'm 73 hours into it, and it's tough, but it's good for me. I know it's good for me. Are you exercising? Are you doing aerobic exercise to increase your serotonin levels? Are you doing weight training exercises to feel more strong and therefore less fearful of the world? Are you stretching your body to allow a greater flow of blood in your system and therefore help you recover faster? Are you doing things for your mental health? Are you meditating? Are you journaling? Are you writing? Are you doing things for your emotional health? Do you have a community around you where you can go and voice what you're struggling with and have people who that see you and love you for who you are? Do you feel like you're growing and progressing in life? By the way, that's why I started the Create community, is literally for this, is to bring people together so that during COVID is when it started, so that we could have a place to continue growing together as a community, because that is important for your mental and emotional well-being. And so spiritually, do you get out into nature? Do you put your feet on the earth? Do you pray? Do you have some relationship to this force that connects all things? If you can take responsibility for that and start taking action on that, I promise you that you will see your life shift, and your life shifting will naturally cause you to want to shift how you show up in the rest of this world. And so that is where personal responsibility starts. And for every single person on the planet, I advise you to start there, and after that you may get to a place where you really want to show up in the collective in a different way, like me making this podcast for the last several years or whatever it is, as an overflow of those things, of how I choose to live my life. All right, fam, that's it. Last questions. A longer musing, but covering a wide array of topics. This is a new episode format. I haven't done this before like this. And so please comment, send a message to The Deep Dive, at The Deep Dive on Instagram. Let me know what you think of this podcast. If you really like the format, let me know. I want to do things that really are fun for me, but also that you get the most value out of. This is a community, just like Create is a community, the Deep Dive, we are a community. And this is a way that I feel like I get to have more interaction with you, actually. If you found value to this podcast, I request that you please shout it out on social media, share it with a friend, tag me at adam.roa, tag at the Deep Dive. Please help this spread. It's a labor of love, and together we can spread this information and this message and the love. So thank you for being a part of this podcast. Thank you for being a part of the Deep Dive community. Wow. I feel complete. I want to remind you that always, in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Have a really blessed day, family.